Hello all, El Presidente Tel here, and I just wanted to sort of put my own spin on probably the biggest debate within the free thinking community on YouTube, which is the constant battle of the theory of evolution versus the sort of story of creationism. And the more and more I look at it, the more it seems to be a 21st century equivalent of the battle between Pope Urban the Eighth and Galileo. You know, we've got exactly the same kind of story. We've got a theory that can be proved with a great amount of scientific study and evidence against a theory backed by the church, based in 2,000-year-old writings with very little scientific fact behind it, and what scientific fact there is has been skewed by relying on the old evidence and misrepresentation, basically looking for the facts that fit the thesis rather than looking for the thesis to fit the facts. I mean, I'm not going to go into a whole biography of Galileo, mainly because most people are intelligent enough to know who Galileo is. I mean, my channel title is a paraphrasing of an old Galileo quote. But the basic point of Galileo's studies was that he was one of the major scientists of the time, or natural philosophers as they were called, to use the scientific method. The method of, I have a theory on how this works. Therefore, I'm going to test this theory. If it doesn't work, then I have to change my idea. If it does work, let me change the environment around and see if perhaps it works under different circumstances. If under each circumstance the same rule applies, then therefore we begin to have a scientific construct. Whereas the other side, which was the Aristotelian view, was you don't need to experiment. This is the way of the logic. I mean, the perfect example from Galileo versus Aristotle was Aristotle believed if you had a metal ball of 100 pounds and you had a wooden ball of £1, same size but those weights, if you dropped them from a great height, the metal ball would fall at 100 cubits in the time it took the wood ball to fall 1. Now Galileo tried this and obviously found that, quite rightly at the time, it was rubbish, because the two will land at roughly the same time because you're dropping them. It's not necessarily the weight, it's the height and other variables. And he had quite famously said, when people said, oh, but you know, we dropped the metal ball and it was 2 inches, hit the ground 2 inches before the other one, he said, you're trying to hide 99 cubits of error in 2 inches, which is quite true. I mean, one of the negative points that went against Galileo was, it's well known in his correspondence that he was quite the arrogant man. He was quite dismissive of those who went against him. But to be fair, most of his theories were bang on. His theory on the tides could have done a bit of work. He believed that the Earth went clockwise for 12 hours and then counterclockwise for 12 hours, hence the tides. We now know, of course, that the lunar gravitational pull affects the tides. But he had no way of knowing this, so he was going with what was best guess, which is what science is. It's the best guess we've got, given the evidence we have. But at least we've looked at the evidence. It seems to be more and more that the creationist side is quite happy to block out a lot of the factual information because it goes against what's written in their book, just like Pope Urban did. He was quite happy to block out all of Galileo's work because it went against biblical teaching. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be as grand a debate as Galileo, but what I do feel is that perhaps we have this sort of situation, this impasse has been reached, where the evolutionists, as the faithful like to call them, can yell, present as much evidence as they want to the creationists, but you're knocking on a brick wall, because it is the immutable divide between rationality and faith. People who believe in evolution know this to be the accurate fact. People who believe in creationism have a certain amount of faith. They believe this because they do. And as long as you have that barrier, and people aren't willing to open their minds to reason, and they instead rely on faith, then I can't see you getting anywhere with that debate. And perhaps it would be time to move on and start talking about something else, because a lot of these arguments go round and round in circles. This is El Presidente Tell. Love, peace, liberty.